When you hear the name Dr. Dre, you probably think of those iconic head-nodding beats, right? And the legendary artists he put on the map. But his story, man, it is so much bigger than that. He's not just a producer, he's a cultural architect, a business mogul, and maybe most importantly, a complete, relentless perfectionist who has shaped the very sound of music for over 30 years. So let's break down the blueprint of the man who didn't just listen to the beat, he built an empire from it, one perfect beat at a time.
And that quote right there, that's not just some nice saying he throws around. It's the engine that has driven every single thing he's ever done, from the moment he sits down in the studio to the moment he signs a billion-dollar deal. This obsession with perfection, it explains both his incredible success and his almost mythical, unreleased projects. And yeah, that drive has definitely paid off. We're talking an estimated net worth of $850 million. That puts him in a league of his own. So the real question is, how did a DJ from Compton, California build an empire that goes so far beyond just making music?
To really understand the mogul, you've got to go back to the beginning, back to the young man. Andre Young grew up in Compton, a place where he was surrounded by two things: the soulful music his parents loved, and the harsh realities of life on the streets. He chose music, but the streets would forever be a part of his sound.
You know, Dre's career didn't just start. It completely transformed. His first group, the world-class Wrecking Crew, was all about shiny suits and, cheesy pop-lock dance vibes. It was a million miles away from the raw, angry anti-establishment force he would unleash with N.W.A. They literally traded glitter for all-black everything and became what they called street reporters.
And the journey of N.W.A. was just as explosive as it was short. I mean, they formed in '87, dropped a culture-shaking album in '88 that got 0 radio play, and by '91, it was all over. Internal fights and money problems just tore the whole thing apart. It was this brilliant, chaotic flash that changed music forever.
With that one iconic opening line, N.W.A. basically put the entire world on notice. They weren't just making songs, they were delivering what they called a hardship documentary. They took all the violence, the poverty, the police harassment they saw every day and turned it into a shocking new kind of music that mainstream America had no choice but to listen to.
I mean, think about that. They were so provocative, so raw, that the actual FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, sent a formal letter to their record label. This wasn't just music anymore, it was a movement, and it clearly had the people in charge completely rattled.
So after the messy, explosive breakup of N.W.A., Dre didn't just move on. He reinvented everything all over again. He co-founded the infamous Death Row Records with 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐷 and created a brand new sound that would pretty much define the entire decade of 90s hip-hop.
And he called this new sound G-Funk. It traded the raw, angry noise of N.W.A. for these slow, hypnotic grooves and super smooth, melodic synths, a lot of which came from old 70s Parliament Funkadelic records. It was still gangster, for sure, but now it was cinematic. It was this sun-soaked, laid-back sound that just took over everything.
And the quality of the sound, it was just on another planet. So much so that a legendary rock producer like Jimmy Iovine heard The Chronic and actually compared it to the Beatles and Pink Floyd. That tells you everything you need to know. Dre had turned hip-hop production into a true art form.
So what is that Dre sound exactly? Well, it's a very meticulous formula. It starts with these heavy, seismic bass lines you feel deep in your bones. Then you've got those iconic, catchy synthesizers. The drums are always incredibly crisp and dry, with almost no echo. He even used live musicians to replay samples, giving it this depth and clarity that no one else had. It was a pure obsession with getting the sound perfect.
But here's the thing. On top of perfecting his own sound, Dre had this insane, unparalleled ear for talent. And his first and maybe most iconic discovery was this young, lanky rapper with a sing-songy, super smooth flow. That rapper, of course, was Snoop Dogg, and their work together on The Chronic would make them both absolute legends.
But the whole Death Row era, for all its success, was also full of violence and controversy. Dre got fed up with all the gangster drama, so he left to start his own label, Aftermath Entertainment. He pretty much declared gangster rap dead and went looking for the next sound. And, you guessed it, the next superstar.
And that superstar came from the last place anyone expected. 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞 handed him a demo from a white rapper in Detroit. When Marshall Mathers showed up at the studio in a bright yellow tracksuit, Dre's crew just laughed at him, calling him Tweety Bird. But then he got on the mic, and the entire room went dead silent. In that very first session, they created My Name Is.
Taking a chance on Eminem was a huge gamble, but man, did it pay off. The Slim Shady LP was a massive phenomenon. It didn't just save Aftermath from going under, it launched the career of one of the best-selling artists of all time. It just proved once again that Dre's ear for talent was second to none.
And this brings us to the final chapter, where Dre's obsession with perfect sound in the studio translates into a billion-dollar business empire, cementing his legacy not just as a producer, but as a true mogul.
You want to understand his perfectionism? Nothing illustrates it better than the story of these two albums. 𝐷etox was this mythical project he worked on for over 15 years, only to finally scrap it because he felt it just wasn't good enough. Then, out of nowhere, inspired by the N.W.A movie, he quickly creates and releases Compton. It's the ultimate paradox of his creative mind. The whole pivot to becoming a business titan, it happened almost by accident. Dre was thinking about starting a sneaker line when he ran into 𝐬𝐿 on a beach. 𝐬𝐿 gave him this legendary piece of advice, and right then and there, the idea for Beats headphones was born. $3 billion, with a B. That's what Apple paid for Beats Electronics in 2014. It was the ultimate payoff for a career spent obsessing over high-quality sound. It made him hip-hop's first billionaire and one of the most successful entrepreneurs music has ever seen.
So when you step back and you look at the whole picture, his legacy is just immense. He pioneered not one, but two huge genres of hip-hop. He discovered and mentored a whole roster of superstars who defined entire generations. Snoop, Eminem, 50 Cent, Kendrick Lamar. He set a new standard for sonic perfection. And he built a billion-dollar empire from the ground up.
It's an absolutely incredible journey, from the streets of Compton to the boardrooms of Apple. And it really just leaves you with one final question. For a man who has spent his entire life trying to top himself, always chasing this impossible standard of perfection, what's next? What beat is even left for him to create?